The Bangladesh Nationalist Party wins the country's first election since the 2024 uprising. Rare international unity as the US, China, India and Pakistan all welcome the result. But how's it being seen at home, especially by the young people who led the protests for change? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Maleen, Saeed. A landslide win for the Bangladesh Nationalist Party in Thursday's general election and what many hope marks a new dawn for the country. Staging a peaceful poll with more than 128 million eligible voters is no easy task, less than 2 years after a student-led uprising ended 15 years of Sheikh Hasina's rule. The electorate approved new reforms too in a referendum intended to strengthen democracy. The victorious BNP's leader, Tariq Rahman, will take charge of a politically divided country. A youthful one too, with a quarter of the population, or around 46 million people, aged between 15 and 29. But satisfying the needs of those who led the fight for change in the 2024 revolt will present big political pressures. India, Pakistan, the US and China have all sent congratulations, but another big challenge will be managing their competing interests. So what will be the new government's most urgent priorities? We'll speak to our guest shortly, but first this report from Joel Evans.
A landmark election for Bangladesh and a huge change of fortune for the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which claimed victory on Friday. Its leader, Tariq Rahman, had been in exile in the UK for 17 years. He's following in his mother's footsteps. Khaleda Zia was Bangladesh's first female prime minister and died just days after Rahman returned to the country in December last year.
It's a fascinating moment for us because after 17 years, we got the opportunity to vote.
I come here to celebrate this occasion. It's a big victory. I'm the great fan of Mr. Tariq Zia.
The summer of 2024 saw weeks of student-led protests that ended the 15-year rule of Sheikh Hasina, during which at least 1,400 people were killed. Hasina fled to neighbouring India. Her party, the Awami League, was banned from contesting Thursday's election. Bangladesh's electoral commissions say the vote was neutral and credible, and the turnout was nearly 60%. The BNP surpassed the two-thirds majority needed to secure victory, winning more than 200 seats in parliament. Its main rival, Jamaat Islami, secured about 70 seats and conceded the election.
You can be assured that our stance will be positive, focused on constructive and people-centred politics, not party politics. We will not oppose simply for the sake of opposing.
The US, India, China and Pakistan have welcomed the outcome. But voters weren't only electing a new parliament, they were also taking part in a referendum to approve a new charter. The landmark document, which was signed by 25 parties, has more than 80 reform proposals, including increasing women's political representation, imposing prime ministerial term limits, and protecting judicial independence. Many challenges lay ahead for the BNP, not least addressing the rift between political parties, ending systemic corruption, and growing the economy. On Friday, its leader called on party members and supporters to refrain from victory processions or public celebrations, instead to observe a day of prayer, seek peace, stability and guidance for the future of Bangladesh. Joel Evans, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
OK, let's bring in our guests. In Dhaka, we have Shahab Enam Khan, Professor of International Relations at Bangladesh University of Professionals. In Sunamganj, in northeastern Bangladesh, we have Prapti Taposhi, who's an activist and a first-time voter. And in Brighton, in the United Kingdom, Sohela Nazneen, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute of Development Studies. A very warm welcome to all of you. If I could start with you, Shahab, the top line here is the BNP has won, and it's won with a 2/3 majority, a landslide Bangladesh has not seen in decades. Is this election historic for who won or for the fact that voters had a real choice for the first time?
Well, thank you very much, Saeed. I think this is a very important question. The voters, for the first time over the past 1.5 decades, got the chance to vote for their own preference. I think I would largely think that voters actually got more options and choices than ever, because this election is also a classic case that the crack in the duopoly that we had in our politics is very much visible. So I think what we have seen over the past one day, the festivity that you have seen in the street is reflection that the people wanted to go and cast their vote for the people that they would like to prefer to see. And we have seen the result is astronomical. You have seen Jamaat-e-Islami has got their seats, BNP has made a landslide winning, the Students' Political Party, National Citizens Party has got 6 seats, and of course you had other alliance members too. But last 15 years, we largely had one party and their alliances.
So Prapti, let me turn to you.
I think the choice matters.
Prapti, let me turn to you because you were a youth activist in 24. We spoke to you just a few days before the election. Millions like you, first-time youth voters, helped shape this result. Do young people see this as a win?
I would say yes. Because why am I saying yes to your question? I have said it numerous times and I will say it again and again. I am 25 years old, but I did not get my chance to cast my vote. I casted my vote for the first time in this election. And look, I'm very excited. This is my sign that I voted. So the young generation of Bangladesh, we did not have this opportunity for 15 years. And finally, that day, that election day was a day of festivity to us because everyone went out to vote and they voted for their favorite political party. They voted for their favorite candidate. And most important of all, I think we will be able to practice our democratic rights. We were under an authoritarian regime. We were under an autocratic regime who did not let us practice our democratic and civil rights for so many years. And after so many bloodshed, after so many atrocities, after so many crimes against humanity, after so many enforced disappearances, after so many killings that we saw, that we witnessed in front of our life, in front of our eyes. And we finally came to that day. And I was very emotional when I casted my vote because I know that voting, that election, it did not come out of nowhere. We had to put a lot of price to buy it, you know. So Sohela, I would say that, yes, that is a win.
So Sohela, if I could turn to you, listening there to Prapti, a woman, a young person, clearly a lot of hope for the future. You are a woman's right advocate. How do you feel about this result? We obviously had an election with a 60% turnout, give or take. It was largely peaceful, a significant youth participation. But when we look at the seats, women and minorities still only hold a small number of seats. To you, is this democracy?
Well, this is the beginning of democratic practice, but we have a long way to go. I mean, you raised the point that how many women and minority have won seats to come into the parliament. We know that 7 women candidates have won and around 4 minority candidates. Obviously, if it is going to be inclusive and participatory, then we would have expected more coming in. We know that none of the parties met the 5% threshold required for nominating women candidates, and that too, it's only 5%. We know that Jamaat did not nominate one single female candidate, saying that their female members lack capacity. This kind of discourse is definitely worrying, even from the student party, NCP, although they had female candidates, but they went into a strategic alliance with Jamaat to win the election seats, which is in one sense understandable, in another sense disappointing, because those who came to the forefront on leading an anti-discrimination movement, you would have thought or expected a bit more from them.
Okay, let me clarify clarify, in case our viewers are not very clear, you're talking about the NCP party, a youth-aligned party, which was a product of those protests. Prapti, let me ask you then, if it was the youth protests that toppled the old regime, why has the NCP, the National Citizen Party, struggled to gain more support?
First of all, there were many youth, there were many leaders and active protesters like us who joined, and not only joined, who led the mass uprising. And a number of people, a number of youth leaders from that mass uprising, they had formed a political party named NCP. So I will obviously echo what Sohela has said, that obviously NCP, not only we, the people of Bangladesh, we had put a lot of trust and hopes and dreams towards them. But when they had formed an alliance with Jamaat-e-Islami, a party, an Islamist party who do not believe in the empowerment of women, an Islamist party who says that women cannot be the leader of their political parties just because they are women, that's not only heartbreaking, that's betrayal. And the women of Bangladesh, I would say the young generation of Bangladesh, we felt betrayed by their actions.
Shahab, I wonder if you could clarify this point about the NCP, because I understand they piggybacked on Jamaat-e-Islam, the Islamist party, because they couldn't get enough support by themselves. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I think the basic problem with NCP was its mandate itself. I mean, the students were largely disfranchised with the political stance of the NCP leaders to a great extent, and subsequently the appeal that they brought to the public were rapidly diminished because many of the students were involved in multiple issues which were not accepted by the public as such. And then the whole idea of change that they wanted to bring was not being materialized by either those who patronaged them or perhaps themselves, which made them to be a part of the whole political patriarchy, or what I call the patronage politics, to a great extent. So that means this whole National Citizens Party, while they still bring hope to the people to emerge as a political party beyond the two dominant political party, or perhaps if you include former Awami League, I mean, they still do have the chances, because this is where they will be sitting in the parliament from the next week, and they will still have some sort of opportunities to bring some meaningful change. But yes, I agree with Prapti to a great extent, and Dr. Nazneen, that I think this whole mindset, or the political mindset, or what I call political patriarchy, having ties with Islamic political parties, or perhaps the far-right political ideologies, is not helpful. And this is where sometimes we get hopeless. But I do still hold some sort of hope, because in future, they will also have opportunity to come up with much more of an inclusive system, and a party that reflects not only themselves, the youth, but also the section, the minorities, and everybody will come in. And that's where I put my hope in.
Okay. I want to move on to the July Charter and the Charter referendum, which was a critical part of this vote. Shahab, if you don't mind, if you could first explain what this Charter was exactly and what it means now going forward for constitutional reform.
I think this charter is a brilliant document which has documented the key issues that the state needs to look into, the political parties will have to look into. And this is kind of a social contract between the state and the public to bring changes in the political system, political institutions, and most importantly, the political behavior. And I think this document will allow us to have a pathway for decentralization of power, bringing more accountability between the head of the state and the head of the government, and of course, the transparency and accountability within the parliament by creating furthermore check and balance. And I think this is the document which will require constitutional changes. And perhaps now BNP has the absolute majority. It will be on their onus to essentially go for necessary constitutional amendment to ensure that this particular document is in practice. It also shows that the parliament will no longer be unicameral. It will essentially become the upper house and the lower house. This will also allow the people who has not been chosen through the partisan political votes will have some sort of say in terms of their parliamentary roles. And I think this document will also be very important to guide the next political courses, because this is essentially the reflection of the public. Almost like 45% plus people, 55% plus people have voted for this referendum, showing that this referendum is the reflection of the public and the mass.
Prapti, in terms of the youth and the young protesters, this is what they wanted: greater accountability. They wanted more open politics. That's what they went onto the streets for. Is this charter going to give them that?
I do not necessarily think so. Why not? Because obviously, why I agree that this charter is obviously a brilliant document, but you have to bring that document in action, right? The political parties of Bangladesh, they have not shown any promises or any actions which will show to us that they will bring this charter into action. For example, this charter says that in this election, you have to nominate at least 5% of the women who will directly contest in the parliament election. And absolutely zero political party had done that. So this is why I am a bit skeptical about it, that if the political parties, mostly BNP now, and obviously Jamaat is in the opposition, they will be able to implement those actions or not.
Sohela, what about you from a gender equality perspective? What specific reforms in the charter would women want to see enacted first?
That's well, to answer that question, actually, the charter talks about where it talks about women is around representation. All the other provisions are around breaking concentration of power and around general principles that should be guiding us. So the specific one was around reservation and basically nomination of women as political candidates. And Prapti has already answered my question. During the election, there was a lot of debates before the election in terms of how many women were nominated, why are women absent. So I guess there would be some pressure on looking at what is going on in the Constituent Assembly and what it comes up with. But what is important to think through is what the charter talks about in terms of breaking that concentration of power that Shahab elaborated on. So, for example, term limits for the prime minister, independence of the judiciary, the upper house where you have proportional representation, caretaker government systems. These are about reining in political party power. And the question is whether political parties will agree to that. They have to do this in 180 days while also running government functions, right, in terms of what's going on in terms of economic policy, law and order situation, controlling mob violence. So that is quite a big task. The question is, basically, how will these be debated in the Constituent Assembly? And if I'm talking about gender equality, well, how many women do you have there, and how many of them really would push for gender equality beyond party lines? That is the question. Same goes for minority rights. So the composition of the assembly and how civil society is creating pressure on that, and if people are keeping an eye, would be critical there.
Shahab, if I could come back to you. We are obviously the country now facing some of the scars of those thousands of student protesters who were killed under Sheikh Hasina. We've already seen the BNP today call for Sheikh Hasina's extradition from India. How far will that go, do you think, in giving people the justice that they need, that they feel hasn't been met yet?
I think this is a very, very important question once again. I think the Constitution, the Parliament will have to really look into this whole trial issue very seriously, although there are a number of disputes going on regarding the processes of the International Crimes Tribunal. But at the end of the day, these crimes tribunal are the reflection of the people who laid their lives to bring necessary changes in Bangladesh. I think two important factors that will play over here. One is geopolitics. I see when I mentioned geopolitics is our relationship with India and India's relationship with the former Prime Minister and her party will remain the big elephant in this entire discussion. So I think that BNP will have to look into that. The second important issue is how Jamaat is going to really take it to the surface. I mean, are they going to go for some sort of political or perhaps diplomatic ways to deal with the extradition and perhaps her return? Or are they going to really create pressure on BNP with the motive that the country remains unstable over the issue of Sheikh Hasina's return and the trial of the rest of the people is something that we all are worried about. And I think that has to be dealt with all political consensus within the parliament, which I believe will have some sort of common ground regarding Sheikh Hasina's return, or perhaps the relationship between Dhaka and Delhi in the coming months. And of course, how Jamaat is going to look into this whole issue. Are they going to really look into from a very strict protest point of view, or are they going to go through certain civility, what we call in politics? That is something that we have to see over the next few months, if not few weeks, because this will be the critical issue that will come up in the parliament as well as outside the parliament. So I think this also resonates the youth. This also resonates the new aspiration that we are now seeing in Bangladesh, in which the politics is no longer in the hands of the elites, but also in the hands of the public and particularly the youth.
Sohela, doesn't this raise another point here? Because Sheikh Hasina still has many powerful supporters within Bangladesh. So how critical is it for the new government to navigate this very carefully? On the one hand, deliver justice for the victims, but it's pretty critical that it doesn't look like revenge against the Hasina supporters, many of which still exist.
Yes, this will require a careful balancing act, obviously. I mean, you cannot have a culture of impunity, and you do need justice, and justice needs to be delivered in a way that its credibility is not questioned. So obviously the government, whoever forms government, and in this case BNP, will have to push forward with the extradition requests, but also the justice procedure that has been set up. But at the same time, Awami League enjoyed 30% support. We saw some Awami League voters voting in the elections, other refraining from voting. It is important to ensure that you start a process where there is reconciliation, and there is something to think about in terms of what happens to Awami League itself as a party. It's banned from running elections, but then what happens in the coming future? At the same time, what is also important to take into account is that at the societal level, how do you have a reconciliation happening? But a key issue there is also an apology. No one has said sorry for 2024. So that's also important. You can't move forward with reconciliation till there is some acknowledgement of what happened was abysmal, and it was horrible what happened.
Prapti, for young Bangladeshis like yourself who marched in 24 and lost friends, does the BNP's approach to justice feel credible? What is it that young people are looking for?
Well, while I acknowledge that the heinous crimes against humanity that Sheikh Hasina committed, it is just undescribable. And well, to answer your question, we have not yet seen how BNP responds to that crimes, how BNP responds to that justice. But what we have observed is how the interim government have responded to those justice and to those crimes. Well, particularly, I would say as a protester there, as a key leader of the mass uprising, I would not say that I'm very satisfied with how the process of justice had been ensured till date. date, because we have seen numerous cases of false people being detained. We have seen numerous false cases, and particularly the International Crimes Tribunal, the way and in the process they are being handling it, it will be questioned. Its credibility will be questioned in near future. But while I say this, I will also want to address this as that, because after July, after the mass uprising, there was no single process of reconciliation. There are many Awami voters, there are many Awami League supporters who did not have committed any crime, who were fully innocent, but still they have to suffer the consequences of a crime that they themselves did not commit. So the process of truth and reconciliation was very important. The process of trauma handling, the process of the whole generation still lives under the trauma, and the interim government had not done anything to resolve our traumas, to put a process towards the reconciliation and to ensure the justice. And justice should be ensured to everybody, even who is a criminal. Justice should be ensured to them as well. The way we are observing in terms of calling out crimes and in terms of handling crimes, we are now observing that more or less this is not justice, I would say. Justice should be credible, fair, transparent, and proper to everyone. That's my point.
Shahab, we're running out of time. Clearly, a lot of challenges ahead for the new government. 5 years from now, if you were to look ahead into the crystal ball, what would a win look like for the new government?
I think I'm very hopeful, to be honest, because the day when the election happened, 3 milestones were achieved. The first, there were no lethality, no violence. And second, all the political parties agreed to whatsoever the verdict comes, which is unprecedented in our history. And then subsequently, we have also seen that the political parties did not resort to any kind of hostility against each other. So if this momentum continues, if the change continues, if the youth remains vigilant and work as a watchdog, if Awami League comes back with some sort of apologies, and if there is a reconciliation, and if the governance is delivered, which I believe will be to a great extent, but we have to be patient. The reform is extremely painful process, and it takes a lot of time to become materialized, and we should not be hopeless, and we should not be impatient. And therefore, I think within 5 years of time, I see more potential for a stable Bangladesh than what we had over the past 1.5 decades.
Okay, I really hope so. Many thanks for all your views today. Thanks to all our guests, Shahab, Enam Khan, Prapti Taposhi and Sohela Nazneen. And thank you too for watching. You can, of course, see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is AJ Inside Story. From me, Maleen, Saeed, entire team here. Bye for now.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.